Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel Sweet Art Crafts. In today's video I wanted to do something more of a resin basics, so I wanted to show you guys 4 ways that you can add color to your resin. Before getting into the rest of this video, I just want to make sure you guys are following proper epoxy resin safety. Please make sure that you're wearing nitrile gloves and that you are in a well ventilated room, preferably a garage or a porch because the air filters better in those areas, and wearing a full respiratory mask. The mask that I'm showing is not a full respiratory, but the one that I'm about to show is the proper one that I think everyone should have. The first way that you can add color to resin is using resin dyes, and these resin dyes are by the brand Minaj on Amazon. I'll make sure to leave them linked down below and on the screen, and I have been really loving these dyes because it's just been super easy to use, and they were sent to me, but I'll always make sure to give you guys an honest review on the products that I'm trying out. So for this portion of the video, I will be using my BT21 and BT21 Babies palettes. Both of these molds were made by me, so if you're interested in purchasing these, please click the link down below. So right now I'm just mixing my resin, and then I'm going to get started on pouring in some resin dyes. Here I'm just showing you guys the number 5 plastic cups that I like to use when I'm doing multiple colors with resin. They easily get out the resin once they are cured, so that's why I love using these, and I always reuse them. So now I'm just adding a couple of drops of the resin dye. As you can see with one drop, it's pretty translucent, which I do like, but I'm going to add in a few more drops just to see how the color looks. And I really do love using these resin dyes just because with most of my charms I like them to have like a translucent effect, and it's really easy with using these since you would only need 1 or 2 drops. So the method that I was doing before, it was a little bit messier, I would say, so you'll see how I used to do them before later on in the video, but I just like using this because it's just more convenient. If you feel that some of the colors are a little bit translucent for you, adding in some droplets of white resin dye will make the colors more opaque. So I put all the resin dye pieces on a white background so you guys can have an idea of what all the colors look like. There is 24 colors altogether, and I'm also going to show you the ones that I did add the white resin dye into, and you can notice the opaqueness of them compared to the ones without the white resin dye added to them. So the second method that I like using for adding color to my resin is using paint. But with paint, you want to make sure you are very careful with this because your pieces can come out not fully cured if you add too much paint. So you can see I'm just adding a little droplet of paint into the resin. I like to start off with just one droplet, and if I feel like the color needs a little bit more opaqueness, then I will add another droplet later on. What I have noticed with using paint in my resin is that it has this milky kind of look to it in a way. I'm not sure if you can tell on camera, but that's why sometimes I don't really like using the paint in resin, and that's why I'm glad that I have the resin dyes now. But it is also an option, and they are pretty cheap. I think each paint bottle was like $1, I think. But yeah, you can tell like as well, like these little speckles in them. Once it's cured, you can't really notice it, but when you're like mixing it, you can kind of tell. Also, with using paints, you can't get them super opaque because if you add too much paint, like I said before, your pieces will come out not fully cured. Like you'll be able to take your hand and like smush the piece and everything, and that's happened to me so many times before. So that's why I like to add one droplet at a time and just see how the color goes. And these are the two molds that I will be using. These molds were both made by me and are on my website, so click the link down below if you're interested in purchasing. So what I'm doing here is just adding the resin with the paint and just doing a kind of like a pastel rainbowish kind of effect. I don't know what I was doing. I was trying to do something a little different, but yeah. The third way that you can add color to resin is using pigments and micas. These are some neon pigments that I sell on my website, and these are some micas as well as nail powders, which are just basically micas. And so I'm just going to mix up my resin, and before I put in my matte pigments into my resin, I came up with this little trick where I add a little bit of rubbing alcohol into them in like a separate cup and mix it, because if you don't do this, you'll notice with the matte pigments especially, they have this like chunkiness to them when it doesn't like distribute evenly when you're mixing them in the resin. It's just like some areas get chunky. So I notice when I add a little bit of alcohol and then pour it into the resin, I don't really have any chunks anymore. This was the main way that I was adding color to my resin, and like I said, it can be a little bit messy because I'm very clumsy, so this stuff spills everywhere sometimes for me, and I just get it everywhere. So that's why I prefer using the resin dye, just because I don't have to do the extra mixing and then putting it in and then mixing again. But this is an option, especially if you want to get that neon effect. This is a really good way to do that. As well with the pearl pigments, or the ones that look glittery and stuff like that, like this white one, I never notice any chunkiness with the pigment, so that's why I never add alcohol to them. I'm not sure why that happens for mine at least, that I don't get the chunkiness with the pearl / mica ones. It's only the matte ones that I've noticed get that effect. The last method that I will show you guys on how you can add color to your resin is using alcohol inks. This was my first time trying these out, and I got these at Michael's, and I really liked that there was all these colors for the price, because I think it was like $27, but the coupon made it like $14, which was pretty good, because I saw another kit that was like $26 as well, and it was only like 3 colors, and I was just like, I'm not justifying the price of this. But I'm just pouring in my resin now, and then I'm going to take my blowtorch and I'm going to get rid of all the bubbles. I noticed with using alcohol ink, since you're just dropping in the colors, you want to make sure that there's as least amount of bubbles as possible. So you can see I'm just shaking up my alcohol inks, because some of the colors, the pigment kind of like drops to the bottom, so you just want to shake it up before you start dropping them in. Now I'm just taking my alcohol inks and I'm just gonna start dropping in the colors. Since this was my first time, like I said before, I didn't really have a set method on how to drop them, or like the color placement and stuff like that. I was just dropping them in anywhere that I found space. So I know how I should do it next time with the colors. Like after doing this trial run of them, I kind of have a little bit of a better idea on how I should approach these the next time I try them out. So now I'm just taking my little spatula and swirling them around, which I realized was super unnecessary because the color didn't really like do anything for the other side of the tray. I think this would have been better with doing resin coasters. This would be like the perfect way to do them and add like a little effect. But with the tray, it really didn't do anything because the other side, when you see me demolding it, it just looked weird. So I'm not doing that again. But yeah, I just wanted to show you guys a few ways you can add color to resin. I know there's more ways that you can do that, but these were just the main ways that I know most people use. So don't forget to comment, like, share this video with your friends, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye now.